Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the channel, and we are changing up the usual race review podcast with just kind of the F1 podcast.
The F1 podcast.
That's
the F1
the
podcast.
F1 podcast. If you like other podcasts, they're out. Although there are a lot of good F1 podcasts about. But we're just going to call us the F1 podcast because we're going to be those guys. Yeah. But basically it means that it'll be a little bit more relaxed rather than kind of going through every team and doing a race review podcast. We can talk about things outside of maybe the Grand Prix and just more of general discussion topics.
Yeah.
It should be fun. Let us know what you kind of think of it. If you absolutely hate it, I suppose you can go back to the race review podcast.
Round off the team.
But yes, but Sunday's race. Did you enjoy Sunday's race?
Yeah. It's difficult not to enjoy carnage.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe the racing wasn't as good as other races, but it was mad. And you just can't not enjoy madness. 2 red flags, 12 cars finishing.
It's one of those where you just go, what's happening? I think I literally tweeted out during the race going, what the fuck is this race? It was just mental. With the collisions and I suppose actually maybe this is the first point to kind of have a discussion about. In obviously the clash after the safety car, that was the biggest of all the incidents. Obviously Lance Stroll was very unlucky with a kind of failure as well, and a scary crash, but luckily he got out of that okay. But yeah, obviously Carlos Sainz was saying that we need to really investigate this and look deep into it. Do you think there was a massive safety flaw with how the safety car worked during the weekend, or do you think it was just one of those things that it was unfortunate circumstances and we just happened to have a pretty bad accident that we're lucky that everyone got out okay?
Well, yeah, the main problem was the safety car line, which is just before the pit entry. Well, basically alongside it. So basically, most safety car lines are further back in Sector 3. So that's where people start, that's when you can back off from the safety car and start being the safety car yourself, Bottas. But Boss had to keep a 10 car lengths between the safety car all the way up to the pit straight. Right to the pit lane. So that's why he had to hold off, and clearly people hadn't been briefed that that was a thing. Maybe they hadn't watched, because the F2 and F3 had the same incident, didn't they?
Yeah, so same instance, but they were all fine. They didn't have any issues with it.
So I feel like it was unsafe. It was just teams weren't properly informing their drivers or weren't properly paying attention to the feeder series and how the safety car started.
Yeah, I think, could it be better? Yes. They certainly could have a scenario where, like you said, the majority ones are kind of further back and just in a normal scenario, because it was literally right up until the start-finish line that, Bottas went. And
that was the strategy that we'd seen all weekend.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. Look, you could say that obviously it's scarier because of the power that the F1 cars have in comparison, and obviously get a catch. But
you got to blame the team, though. The teams. They should be telling their drivers, this is going to happen. Don't jump too early.
I think you're right, because F3 have a massive grid. F2, both series have more cars on the track and had more cars on the track at that time than the F1 race, because obviously they lost 2 in Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen in the first instant in the race that brought out that safety car. So, yeah, I think it was just somewhere in the midfield, someone's accelerated, it was a consequence of events, and it ended obviously in a big crash, and obviously showed Halo is a fantastic. I think it massively helped Carlos Sainz because obviously Giovinazzi's car mounted the front of his. You know, it's a pretty scary thing, and it's showing how the advancement at safety have gone. But yeah, I don't think there was a fundamental safety flaw here.
With the actual track, no.
Yeah.
I think if all the drivers had just been informed, we probably would have got away all okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly drivers weren't informed.
Or yeah, it just happens. Sometimes these kind of incidents happen.
Just happen.
It could happen anywhere. In terms of turn ones are usually chaos, and you know, whenever you get the cars bunched up, I mean, yeah, we saw it in there was a lap 1 incident, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, it's a narrow track, and it's probably going to cause more incidents than not with it narrowing. But yeah, that's our first point discussion. Where's go? Well, obviously we mentioned him there, Max Verstappen, having another issue with engine electrical.
1 in 3 races, Max is DNFing.
Yeah.
And the rest he's getting podiums on.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the best to bring up like Sainz and Magnussen as well. They've probably been the unluckiest drivers this season so far.
Yeah.
In terms of car reliability. Magnussen, definitely the unluckiest for me. Race 1 was like brake failures. Monza, his car just broke. I think that was what it was. Here he was an innocent bystander and had someone like smash into the back of him.
Yeah. Silverstone, he had the collision with Albon.
Yep, which then damaged his car for the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. And so yeah, he's been lucky. But yeah, it's so frustrating with Max. I mean, Max wasn't going to be in the championship fight, but it just rules him out so quickly.
Yeah,
doesn't it? And I suppose it may make Max hungry because he may just want to get wins under his belt and increase his podium positions. But
exactly.
Yeah, it's a hard one to stomach for Max, definitely. Especially as, he had a great start. He got ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
Literally.
And then his engine just went, no.
Yep. I don't want to drive anymore. I want an early finish.
Yeah, and I don't...
He was an innocent bystander in that crash, but you think if he did survive it, they were going to retire that guy.
His race was over,
yeah,
pretty much, because he was just dropping like a lead balloon. Like a lead balloon. But yeah, Max, I suppose we look to him so much as F1 fans to kind of make an entertaining race at the top, because probably a good point to go into Bottas. Disappointing again.
There's a bit more fight on the radio, but that fight didn't really amount to anything on track. Got a great start. He beat Lewis to the first corner, race on. That's what he had to do. Maybe he got unlucky because of he did get unlucky because of the safety car and consequent first red flag. But he still had that golden opportunity on the second restart to clinch off Lewis again into the first corner, and he fluffed it.
Well, I was talking to Tinnis when I did his race live reaction there. Go and check out the TF1 show if you get an opportunity as well. Great F1 YouTuber, podcaster, if you like, not the F1 podcast.
Oh, no, of course not.
But he was saying, Valtteri was unlucky, but again, he... especially when he wanted the split strategy, Mercedes didn't give it to him, but also his tyre wear went, and he's worse on his tyres, which always means that he's compromised in a position to Lewis Hamilton, and it's one of his main weak points probably against Lewis, because Lewis can always make tyres last a lot longer than Valtteri into a stint, and he had a golden opportunity at the end and he blew it. He could not have asked for a better one, because tyre life wouldn't have been an issue in a 12-lap sprint to the end. Every start in that race, the 2 previous to it, whoever started in P2 had led after the first corner.
Yep.
And, that is when the pressure on. He doesn't get many opportunities against Lewis Hamilton. And again, he blew it.
Yeah. It's disappointing to see week in, week out Valtteri doing something wrong and then throwing away any battle for the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, wasn't great for poor Valtteri on that front. But probably completing the podium. Obviously, we talked about the misfortune of Max Verstappen. But yeah, differing fortunes of teammate Max Verstappen. Alex Albon getting his first podium. Do you think this will now be a confidence boost that takes Alex Albon on to a better second half of the season? Or do you think, well, it was the bare minimum he should have got on that day and it probably doesn't really change anything?
Yeah, you'd hope so. It's a confidence boost. You know, everyone's saying that he would be a different driver if it wasn't for the Brazil incident, be a different driver if it wasn't for the Austria incident. So hopefully he's now a different driver. Otherwise, everyone that supported him will be like, come on now.
Well, he's now got that podium.
Yeah.
He's now got that podium. And it's not like Brazil and Austria were brilliant drives from Alex Albon. He had benefited from safety cars in there. So again, he's benefited from Max Verstappen retiring and the last red flag. But he's got that podium this time. He doesn't have to worry about it. He's got that under belt. So hopefully, with that monkey off his back, he goes on and improve. And I think you have to be fair to Alex Albon. Over the past couple of weeks in qualifying, definitely.
It was his best qualifying performance so far, yeah.
Certainly was. He's improving. And race, again, his starts just let him down, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a problem with the car, though.
Well...
Because I think Max made a comment on it as well.
Yeah, sometimes
obviously,
it does.
His start was very good, but...
I don't know. I see Max do more good starts. Maybe he's more used to it. Maybe it is a difficult starting system to get used to.
Maybe, yeah.
And obviously Max has 6 months more experience and 5 years more experience in the sport than Alex Albon to cope with that better. But yeah, it was a very positive weekend for Alex. I mean, I think questions would have had to have been asked if he didn't secure the podium.
Yeah.
Because that Red Bull was actually very competitive this weekend. Clearly, for me, the second best car on the grid this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully we see some strong P4s, maybe a few more podiums out the rest of the season. Yeah, hopefully it's a changed man. But yeah, like you said, he did get some fortune on his side. But maybe that's all it needs for a confidence booster.
Maybe. And a guy who is not short on confidence, off track or on track, and probably, for me, one of the drivers of the season. I know, obviously, the likes of Pierre Gasly takes the headlines as well, but just missing out on a podium today, unlucky, obviously, with that red flag going out. Daniel Ricciardo. How brilliant was he? This was, for me, his best race of the season, and how brilliant has he been for Renault this season?
Unbelievable. Yeah. Maybe there's some thoughts in his head going, maybe I should stay with this team. But then again, he's off to McLaren, who are also flying at the moment. Obviously, not such a good weekend, which we'll come on to later. But yeah, he's had a great season. Come very close to some podiums in Spa and now Mugello. Could Imola be the one?
Maybe. I think it's even harder to overtake at Imola than it would be Mugello. So, and you think that you probably aren't going to get the red flag situations that you got.
You never know now.
You never know, but on normal race strategy, they just nailed it.
Yeah.
Didn't they? They got ahead of Stroll in the pits with the undercut.
Yep.
Was very strong on the undercut for that performance. Was managing the gap to Stroll and Albon very well with that kind of last stint. We all know how good Daniel Rick is on his tyres, especially this year. Especially I think the Renault years. He's been incredibly good. He's gone on like stupidly long stints.
Yeah.
Haven't necessarily always worked out strategy-wise, but he's maintained competitive lap times like stupidly long into a stint on like a medium compound, or say something like that. But yeah, I think Daniel Ricciardo, for me, he was always a guy that at Red Bull, well, I suppose he never really got a championship contending car, so he never really knew whether he was capable. But when he left for Renault and people were like, give Daniel Ricciardo the right means, he could be a world champion. I actually think he's improved at Renault, and before I would have gone, I don't think so. But now, with his ability, I don't know, it's still, obviously, he's gone from middle, but he's proven he can win races, he's proven he can get podiums and compete. I think...
he's pulling that team forward.
Yeah, I think if McLaren got it right in 2022, Daniel Ricciardo definitely could win a world championship.
Yeah. And him joining before those regulations can really help build that car for 2022.
Yeah, because I think as a team manager, or as a team leader, as he is a driver, I think everyone, thought after he announced going to McLaren, just predicted that Renault was be a horrible season, and that, you know, the relationship between Daniel Ricciardo and Renault would sour really quickly.
Yeah, we all thought Carlos Sainz would be fine at McLaren, but Renault and Ricciardo
might be an issue.
Yeah.
But they've been brilliant. And in fact, well, not that. McLaren and Sainz have still been good, and obviously Sainz has had, you know, some unfortunate events for him during the season. But, you know, Ricciardo and it's just been really professional, and they drive each other forward, and it's been fantastic to watch, actually. And I think Renault quietly are really making good moves going forward to being a successful team within the sport again.
Yeah,
they're certainly getting closer to that goal of getting back on the podiums. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, getting very close. They're probably feeling quite unfortunate being one of the only midfield teams now podium this season.
Very true, yeah. Racing
McLaren,
Point and McLaren both got.
Yeah. It's crazy to think.
It is, but unfortunately, you know, a lot of those podiums fortunately, those podiums have come from a lot of fortunate situations, and unfortunately, Renault haven't quite been in that position to take advantage of it. Yeah. When it's been around for them, but, you know, on genuine pace in Spa, that was probably the most impressive, chasing down Max Verstappen. Yeah. And almost getting within, he just needed probably a couple more laps and he would have had it. Yeah. But although Max was managing that race, so it would have been interesting to see. Anyway, but yes, that's Ricciardo and Renault. So yeah, we talked to the other Renault powered, and you're probably McLaren just going, we'll mix them in together. Renault got out of the weekend more than they were expecting, and McLaren got out less than they were expecting. Yeah,
McLaren were looking... They thought this would be a strong circuit for them, and Renault thought it would be a weak circuit. And both got it completely wrong. Well, okay, McLaren still walk away with a P6, and Sainz was unlucky to get caught up in all that stuff at the safety car. But they just didn't look like they had the pace at all. Norris never challenged Checo in the Racing Point, but he was comfortably ahead of the AlphaTauri of Kvyat. He was in no man's land, and yeah, not really. They probably should have had like a P8, but you know, P6, quite a fortunate result for them.
Yeah, it's damage limitation, and I think this is where this McLaren car has been all season. Really, it's just been so up and down. Yeah, it literally is all over the place.
It looked incredible in Monza, and just not very good in Mugello.
And Spa, it didn't necessarily look too great compared to Ricciardo. It was okay. Yeah. It's just been such an up and down season for McLaren, and but you know, they're doing smart. They're lowering expectations. They've still managed to pick up like 2 podiums in the season with Norris and Sainz, so that's fantastic for them. But yeah, it's a weird season for McLaren, but I don't know whether it's just them stumbling going forward into Mercedes. They're one of those teams that I think are just, my focus is 2022. Yeah. We're here to race. If we can have some great results, brilliant. We're going to try and compete as hard as we can each weekend, but we're not really too devastated by anything at the moment. Although getting third in the constructors would be a massive statement for them.
Exactly, yeah.
So I feel
prize
like
money wise as well.
Yeah, well, prize money, but just to say McLaren, it's a real opportunity, definitely, to go the next couple of seasons to get third in the constructors. Going into the 2022 rule regulations, it would be a serious statement for them.
Yeah.
But I think they'll have Renault will definitely find that third position a lot more closely next year.
Yeah, definitely. With Fernando.
And a lot more experienced Esteban Ocon as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Ocon would
coming back.
Jump on.
Well, Ocon's been improving, hasn't he? He was unlucky in terms of his retirement from the race.
Yeah, well, he was lurking in P10 at that point.
Yeah. Look, he's off Ricciardo, but I don't know. The jury's still probably out.
I feel there's
Ocon.
more of a gap between Ocon and Ricciardo than there is Albon Max.
Yeah,
and we lay in for Albon for being off Max. So.
That's true. Yeah, so fair.
Well, Albon's now pushed on to close the gap. He's only a few tenths off Max now, and Esteban's still.
Well, then that's a discussion. Is Esteban Ocon come the end of 2021? Because I think he signed up to 2022. Do you think he will be a Renault driver?
Or did they get Pierre Gasly? Which at the moment is looking like a very good upgrade.
Yeah.
It just depends. Obviously, Esteban's had a year out, so you've got to take that into account, that some performance...
I think Christian Lundgaard is third in the championship as well in F2, so I think definitely by the time 2022 comes around, he will have enough super license points.
Plenty of options, yeah. Because at the moment, he's definitely safe this year because he's got the contract signed up. They want some stability. And obviously the academy drivers... Well, you say Lundgaard could get a super license.
I think it was still too early for Lundgaard in there. And I still thought there were some confusing elements of people thinking that he should have come in. They should have waited for Lundgaard instead of Fernando Alonso. I mean, if Renault had gone Lundgaard and Ocon, I mean, that would have been one of the weakest driver lineups on the grid for me.
Ricciardo shows that you need experience in that team.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Esteban, I don't want to make any early judgments. I think at the end of the season, if he's still miles behind Ricciardo, next season, if he's still miles behind, should move on.
Yeah, or maybe this is, Daniel Ricciardo proving that he is one of those top-band elite drivers in the sport, and Esteban Ocon is actually doing a solid and good job, but as a number 2 driver...
As a midfield team, you've got to have two.
You've got to have stronger ones, yeah.
It's not a fact of having a 1 and 2. You need 2 guys battling it out.
I'll throw the question to you then. Would they have been better off sticking with Nico Hülkenberg?
Well, now having Nico and Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that French link with Esteban. That's the main thing. That's probably one of the big factors that decided it. This is a tough one.
I mean, because we're literally we're just over a year on, aren't we, from when the decision is made?
Nico never got a podium, so why not twist and see if Esteban can do any more? Or just back the experience. Well, they had the experience in Ricciardo, so have the young driver in Ocon. I think it was a good go. And maybe it's still a good relationship there. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, Esteban probably still needs to be... he needs to be doing more.
Yeah.
In that seat, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He's quietly gone under the radar because Ricciardo, all the focus has been on Daniel Ricciardo, that people have stopped talking about Esteban. And if Renault were having a poor season, I think Esteban's performances would have been brought up a lot more.
Yeah.
I suppose we should probably talk about them. But Ferrari in their 1000th Grand Prix,
Double points finish.
Strong result. What a weekend for Ferrari.
How many points? 4 points did they get? Incredible. Not sure what to add. They beat a Williams. Good job, Ferrari. They got outperformed by Kimi Räikkönen. Good job, Ferrari.
Again.
I know Leclerc technically finishes above Kimi, but on out-and-out pace, Kimi beat them both.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, Kimi and Grosjean had an extra formation lap on that last restart. So their tyres were up to temperature, which led to their fantastic restart on the last one. That's why both Kimi and Grosjean jumped
everyone.
Sebastian, Leclerc and George.
Wow.
And what ultimately cost George his point.
That's very frustrating for George.
Yeah.
George, I mean, I saw Sebastian Vettel talking in his interview afterwards going, if I let George pass because he really deserved his points today, I would have been hanging from a noose from the rafters up here. But, he was really impressed by George Russell's race. But yeah, Ferrari, Leclerc, again, his performances, I think he's been one of the drivers of the season.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult because that Ferrari has been so poor, but he had a fantastic race start and was running in P3.
P3, yeah.
I know Max dropped back, but yeah, he jumped Albon, and as obviously Max dropped back, and he held P3 for a while as well.
Mm.
He didn't immediately drop back once everyone
it was only
got
when
up to
DRS
pace.
Really flicked on that he went flying backwards.
Yeah, he never stood a chance, and it shows obviously with DRS. It maybe should DRS be get rid of? Does it make overtaking too easy?
If we didn't have DRS with the current cars and with the new engine regulations, with the only one engine mode, we won't see any overtaking, would we? Where else on track did we see an overtake other than the main straight?
That's true.
That's only because of DRS.
It would literally be great start, and then it would be processional.
Yeah.
From then on in.
Maybe in 2022.
We can have a look.
But at the moment, with this year, next year, you kind of need DRS for races like Mugello.
Yeah.
Just to give you some overtakes.
Yeah, we'll stick with Ferrari, and because we'll look at... Well, actually, let's round off Mugello, and then we'll talk about the main story outside of the Grand Prix, which was obviously Vettel signing for Aston Martin and Perez now being out of a race seat for 2021. Might still stay in F1. We can probably talk about options going from there. But yeah, Mugello as a whole, as a circuit on the F1 calendar, what I think, one, the location was beautiful.
Yeah.
I know they had some fans there, limited numbers of the Tifosi.
3,000?
Yeah, I think it was 3,000. But, it was amazing. And just seeing that filled up on a race weekend, I think would be brilliant. And I think the track itself has some real good challenges. And I think in the F2 and F3 races, with smaller, more nimble cars, simple aero, we saw brilliant races there.
Yeah.
And for F1 currently, in the next year, it probably wouldn't be a good race. But I quite liked it as a circuit.
Yeah. I thought it looked very nice. And it was obviously a very is technical the right word? It took a lot from the drivers. It was a very physical, that's the one, not technical, physical track. You saw Lewis was completely knackered. So Kvyat was gone. His face was just like...
hey, Dad.
Yeah. I quite like that. I quite like the physical exhaustion that it gave on the drivers. It put on the drivers. Even though the current F1 cars maybe weren't nimble enough to fully put on a great entertaining show on track with overtakes all over the place.
Although we do have to say that turn one for going around the outside. Alex Albon, what a move. That was the move of the weekend, wasn't it, on Daniel Ricciardo
yeah.
to take the podium. Yes, obviously the car had superior pace, but considering, and he said he was driving rounds, thoughts of those previous lost opportunities.
I don't think I fully appreciated it in the moment because it was like, oh no, not again.
But yeah, looking back at it, it just brilliant, fantastic, wasn't it? Really good, and it shows that. And there are other points that you can weave in and out, and obviously be a bit more ballsy in a race on the circuit. But yeah, I think it was a good addition, and I think it was a better race than we hoped for it to be in 2020. A lot of that came from
the crashes,
the carnage,
and the red flags,
and the red flags that brought his interest. But in actual on-track action, I think you said without the crashes, it would be a bit like the Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that rounds up Mugello.
Yeah.
Should we touch on the feeder series before?
Yeah, well, I suppose we've got the first champion of the season, and that is Oscar Piastri winning the F3 Championship, with Teo Pacher coming in P2 and Logan Sargent P3. Haven't caught up with the races yet in watching them, but I'm pretty sure Logan went through some pretty bad luck.
On the last race, when it was just a straight shootout, level on points, Logan versus Piastri, whoever finishes higher wins. Logan, I think he got taken out, or it was like a first lap incident, and he just crashed out.
Hey, he still had a fantastic season.
I think,
but you've got to say, maybe he should have done better, because he was the experienced guy. He'd had a year under his belt in F3. Yes, in a Carlin team that struggled the year before. But, Teo Pacher in ART that... Well, you look at the other guys on the grid. ART we know is a good team, but Prema dominate F3.
They're not Prema.
Yeah, exactly. And, Teo has won every single championship he's been part of until now.
Career over.
In F3. But, it's fantastic for him to get P2. And Oscar, rookie season was impressive. I believe he was in Formula Renault last year. But, incredible from the young Aussie driver to secure that championship.
Any links to F2?
I believe all three will probably be racing in F2 next year.
Oh.
I imagine so. So that's exciting. And I suppose F2, again, didn't catch the races. It's hard when we had 3 races to watch in a weekend with 2 IndyCar races and an F1 race. Fortunately, the feeder series just dropped slightly below, but we're catching up on that. But yeah, Mick Schumacher now taking for the first time the lead in the championship on a fantastic weekend where he got to drive the F2004 around Mugello. Brilliant for Mick.
Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, and do you think now that there's almost this air of inevitability that he's going to get the Alfa Romeo seat in 2021?
Well, yeah. Gio's gone. I know Mugello, it's not his fault. Obviously, Spa messed up and his team messed up, but he also saw the warnings for the pit lane in Monza. And then, he's been unfortunate. It's not been a great season for Gio. Alfa have said Kimi's their number 1. Gio's going to go. And with so much young talent coming through, Schumacher's got the name. And you think maybe even if he comes second, Ferrari may still put him in the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, but he has the momentum.
Yeah.
He had the bad luck, and then ever since then he's been the most consistent driver, picking up podium after podium, and now he's he's got the points advantage. I think that win in Monza will be absolutely huge for him.
Yeah.
And I think propel him onto a really strong ending rounds of the championship.
Yeah. I think he's got one of the longest streaks of podium finishes in F2.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's up there. I think Grosjean held the title, but I think Mick is somewhere amongst the top 5 on most podium runs.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's
Mr.
very
Consistent.
impressive.
Yeah.
I know Stoffel has the most wins, I'm pretty sure, in F2. But Mr. Consistent on podiums. And I think that's all you need to do in F2.
Yeah.
It's all about just progressing, getting through, I mean, he's got the super license points, but if he wins the championship, hey, job done.
Boom.
That's all you need. But yeah, so we'll round off this podcast with the big news that came last week, where it looked, I think Otmar said Vettel never stood a chance, and then next thing you know, Sergio Perez is releasing a statement saying that he's leaving at the end of the season, which then everyone goes,
sorry?
Surely Vettel's signing an end. And then Vettel was announced, pretty much the morning after.
Yeah. So when did Otmar say Vettel didn't stand a
I'm
chance?
convinced it was like at the previous Grand Prix at Monza, like in the post-race. I think he was kind of putting water on those.
Was that after all the photos of Vettel and Lawrence?
Yeah, I think he was just saying no, it's not happening. Then Perez is gone, Vettel's in, and it has happened.
Yeah, and that's F1 really. That's cutthroat business. I do think Racing Point were a bit too cutthroat though on this one, because didn't Sergio get a message the day before and then he was like, oh, I got to release a statement now then? Or he was basically told right up until the day before his seat was safe, and then they kicked him out.
There was an interesting debate, obviously. I think it was an FP1, because they were saying, well, would he have been included in discussions of whether they're going to drop him from a seat or not? And the rumours happened pretty much as soon as Sebastian left Ferrari. So he would have had, and obviously he said earlier on in the season that teams were contacting him about seats for next year, inside F1 and outside F1, because they were like going, we hear you're going to be out of the seat. And he's like, well, okay. Ted
so it would have been in the back of his mind. But
and also Ted said, didn't he, around about the British Grand Prix, before Checo was tested positive for COVID, that it was going to happen that weekend.
Yeah.
And they were just waiting for an opportune moment, let it settle a bit, go from there. And look, it's really harsh on Checo. He deserved that opportunity, and well, with him, we'll talk about it. What opportunity would you like to see Sergio Perez go? For me, I'd like, unless Red Bull offer him a seat.
Yeah, which you can't see really.
I feel like Nico Hulkenberg seems to be the guy rumoured if they go for an experienced guy.
To go Hulkenberg?
Yeah. And
but now they've got Albon, who's got more podiums than Hulkenberg. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
No, but I think Perez, it doesn't seem likely because of how positive they're speaking about Alex Albon, and but he would have to have a really poor end to season for that seat to open up.
I just think they got Pierre Gasly as well now. They got a race winner they could turn to who wants to go back to Red Bull. So
keep it in-house.
Yeah, they may go, well, we go for a more experienced pick, but Pierre's now 3 seasons deep. He's getting experience. So I'm not sure why, at this point, Red Bull have got maybe an Albon about to make a step higher. They've got Pierre Gasly, a race winner. I'm not sure why they would go external at this point. I know at the start of the season, we were saying they should have, but I think now, I don't think they will.
They don't need much of an excuse to stay in-house.
Yeah.
And Albon and Gasly definitely, Albon either has the chance to step up. He's clearly within the team, the way they speak about his feedback knowledge, that he shows enough that they think there's potential there with Albon.
Yeah.
And with Gasly, he's putting in the performances that make them go, well, we have to consider it, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Go from there. So, which means that seat's probably gone for Perez. Alfa Romeo and Haas, I don't want to see him either of those seats. Why? What? I mean, he's now 30. Yeah. Go off somewhere. and
Try win championships somewhere else.
Yeah, Formula E, IndyCar. I'd love to see him in IndyCar because, you know, Mexico support. There's a huge Mexican support for IndyCar. They may even bring back a Mexican track onto the calendar.
I think if
a big name like Checo came into it, and you know we're seeing Scott Dixon leading the championship in IndyCar at the age of 40. So you could then say you've got 10 years of a career longevity, plus for Checo, and he could have a chance of competing in one of the top teams because
I think there were some rumours of Arrow McLaren looking at him because I think they're looking to do a third seat for
so I'm sure we'll talk about that in the Indy podcast.
Yes.
But I'd rather see him go out of the F1. I can't. We've seen with Grosjean that he'd restored his reputation. He was been thought more highly of back in 2015. Gambled on Haas in 2016. Haas is just so unstable. It could make or break your career. Like people now wouldn't be disappointed if either Grosjean or Magnussen left the sport.
No.
And that's mainly down because their car's been awful for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So if Checo goes to that team, he could just fizzle out the sport, and then he may not even be an attractive option because he'll lose his name.
Exactly, yeah.
At the moment, he's a big name. So if Formula E or IndyCar got him, they'd love it. It was a big name, and it's a guy in the prime of his career. Where Haas, it would just feel like a massive downstep, and he's done all the hard work, and it hasn't worked out. So why not try your luck somewhere else?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you think on the current grid, I know you said Red Bull, he was linked, but I can't see that. You can't see him going to Alpha because they've got their academy. Ferrari would be moving the academy guy into there. And Haas is the only option. There will be a seat there next season, but he shouldn't go for it. He should go elsewhere. Maybe, does he have any interest in endurance championships? He's quite good on the tyre wear, so I think he'll be quite good in endurance championships.
He'd probably be very good. He could go on. I mean, I know he hasn't won Monaco, but he could go and win. He could go and see if he can compete in the top
Triple Crown
World Endurance Championship and go for something like Le Mans.
Yeah.
I don't know if... Actually, that's a good one. Someone can let us know in the comments below, just off the top of my head. I don't know if a Mexican has ever won Le Mans.
There we go.
So he could be the first ever Mexican to win that. There's so much. Checo is such a talented driver, and probably not in that. I think it's probably fair to say now what we've seen in his career, a very good driver, not really given the opportunity properly to have a look, but not in that elite bracket of like the Hamiltons, Vettels, Verstappens, Leclercs of the world. So, but he could still be a very talented. He's still a hugely talented driver and could go and compete in other series. That his strengths might actually make him an incredible champion.
Exactly. Trophies are wait for him outside of F1, so he needs to get out. Absolutely.
And I suppose we move on to the Vettel aspect of it. Good move for Vettel.
Great move for Vettel. Well, it's the last throw of the dice, isn't it? And Aston Martin, up and coming. They've got a ton of, I know budget caps are coming in, but they're not going to have any financial problems. They should have a very good car come 2022. I think it's a great move.
Historically, very good factory team.
Yep.
To produce a good car.
No one else is in the sport they could have gone to, so he loves F1. He wants to stay in F1. Best move for him.
Yeah. Better than McLaren. I mean, I know he turned down the McLaren seat, I think.
That's a tough one. Better than McLaren.
He certainly can make the team all his because he will comfortably outperform Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
As much as Lance is improving and showing then, it would be almost disrespectful to compare the two talent-wise.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it was a money problem with McLaren because obviously when he he got first kicked out of Ferrari, that's when they were having the financial problems.
That's very true.
So maybe they couldn't offer him the money he wanted, or maybe he was just worried about long-term prospects.
But I don't even think it's. Well, he said openly, I don't think money is an issue with Seb. I don't think that he would have gone, "Nah, that contract's a joke."
Mm.
I think he would have gone. I reckon McLaren, he would have liked to have thought about the situation a bit more, and I reckon McLaren wanted a decision then.
Yeah.
And he's gone, and maybe something just didn't feel right about it. So it's like, if something doesn't feel right, I don't want to rush this.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's last shot saloon. Because if he fails at another team, then that's his career over. But if he succeeds, he can probably drive to his 40s like Kimi, if he so chooses and wants to.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah,
great move for him, and maybe it's just so difficult to tell what will happen in 2022. Will it just still be a Merc 1-2?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great move from Sebastian. Yeah, sad to see Checo go. Would love to see him in the sport still, but I think for him, it's the right decision to move to a different series.
Yeah, I think that probably rounds up the podcast for today. I think we've covered everything that needs to be covered. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed the more kind of relaxed, chatty manner of the sport. It would be more podcasty, I would say.
Yeah,
this is definitely a more podcasty feel rather than what it was before with kind of more segregated sections. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think of the new podcast format in the comments down below, and what you thought on obviously the discussion topics we did. What were your thoughts obviously from the race? Thoughts on Vettel and Checo Aston Martin? Thoughts on the feeder series? Obviously Piastri Championship, the F2 title fight as well. Yeah, it'd be fascinating to hear your thoughts. And if you're new around here, or you haven't done so already, what can they do, Stephen?
You can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding that bell. But that's it from us today, guys. We hope you've enjoyed it. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.